Good, grade 11. So before we start, what we're going to do, the idea is I've put at the back there's some revision on the functions and series, what you're currently doing. Now, that is some basic stuff that you are supposed to do. So that's nice. While we're waiting, you can work through that. I just got 3 scripts of last year, which I copied before I started marking. And I'm just going to show you the 3 scripts. And the reason of me showing you the 3 scripts is I'm going to share the marks of the 3 scripts with you as well. So in the 3 scripts, I'm first going to show you the first script, and it looks like this. That's the first script. Then the second script, I'm going to make this one the second script here. This is the second script, all right? And then the third script, I'm just keeping the names closed here, looks like this. Now, if you're going to take one of these scripts to mark, you can already get an idea of what the marks is going to look like. I'm going to show you the 3 marks. One of those scripts, 97 out of 100. Another one got 94, and one of them got 28. No? Small things sometimes matter because it makes a difference at the end of the day. And you being here also shows that you are putting in the work. So thank you for that. But you cannot show up to a marathon if you haven't prepared. Now the same, you can't go to a test and walk into the test venue and forget about the small things. Right? So I think we're well enough prepared. Today's class is just a revision. We're going to focus on functions because that is actually ultimately it's a greater part going to be with in terms of the NSC exams. Then it's going to be it's algebra and functions paper 1 basically. Majority of the work. That's why the emphasis of today is going to be on functions. So what we have here is the back on track tutoring program. You can write there. You can please write your name on the booklet right in front. We're going to work through the booklet today. It is supposed to be the first session we're going to run through is going to be grade 11 revision. So it's not supposed to be difficult for us to do. If we look at it, we can see there after you've written your name on, let's start there from the back. Kashanik, you can read first the first question. Or the first question, I'm going to read through the index quickly. It says there functions, grade 11 summary of the functions. All right. If you didn't know, there we have Callington, the different functions, the parabole, the hyperbole, exponential. Who can tell me what is not here? The linear function. The linear function is not here, all right? Because they consider that is a grade 10 function. There's the different types, how you can write it as the linear. The parabole is, for example, written into the second form, ax squared plus bx, that's this plus c is the standard form. Then we have underneath that is called the turning point form. Now, if you didn't know that, write it next to it. Then we also have another form which we can get the parabola in. Who can tell me what is that form again? It's not indicated here. I don't see it. It's a, the root form. No? So you can just write there for yourself. It's y is equals to a x minus r1 and x minus r2. Of in Afrikaans sal ons sê a is gelyk aan a hakie x minus v1 and x minus v2. Now that is the Wortel form. No? Just giving you the roots. Then we have there for all of the graphs, basically to determine any intercepts. For x-intercepts, it will be y is equals to 0. For all of these graphs, when we want to determine the y-intercept, we say x equals to 0. So that's just the basics. Then they have the axis of symmetry and the asymptotes that we should know. If we turn around there, they're looking at the parabola on page example number 1, sketching the parabola. They give us the equations in the turning point form. Y is equals to x plus p squared plus q. Now we're given f of x is equals to x plus 1 squared minus 4. You can write down the answer there on your question paper. Write down the turning point of f. What is it going to be? Remember that x is also always in the opposite. So write there for yourself. 1.1 turning point of draaipunt in Afrikaans. What gaan dit wees? -1 and -4. So the first answer there is supposed to be -1 and -4. Then next question they ask you determine the x-intercepts of f. How do we calculate x-intercepts? We make y is equals to 0. You can fill that into your set y is equals to 0. What do we do afterwards? We equate the two equations and then we get this. And when we get x is equals to 1 or x is equals to negative 3. No? Determine the coordinates of the y-intercept. What are we going to make 0 here? X. So this is just the revision, and you can see when we go through this stuff is actually basics that we're supposed to know. Alright, but they're going to ask us these type of questions in Friday's test. Draw the sketch graph. You can see if you can find the space there. Draw the graph of f clearly. Now let's look at the graph of f. What is the value of a? Look at the value. Let's just make a quick summary for ourselves. A is technically 1, but it's positive. No? So in essence, you don't need to do, when we're talking about a sketch graph, it doesn't need to be on scale. So I need to get an idea. I know it's going up. What else do I know from this? It's turning where? So that's going to be at -1 and -4. Then what else can I deduct from that? It's going to cut where? By -3, and that is going to be 1. So I make a small sketch in my head or on my paper. Say, for example, if that's your question paper, before you go and go draw the, because this is the stuff that the marker or the examiner is going to be looking for. Then what else do I have there? Did they ask for the y-intercept? Yes, they asked for the y-intercept. So the y-intercept is going to cut there by -3. Now this is my thinking process, but I can also sketch my thinking process. No? Have an idea, and then I go to my graph there, Ethan, and I just make a nice bigger sketch of it like that. Where quickly I put in all of the values. That is going to be -3, that's 1. Mine is a little bit skewed. It's supposed to be the other way around. That's this value here is it's actually supposed to turn on that side. Yeah, that's -3, and then it turns there by -1 and -4. That is the values that's important for you right there. Alright, then moving on there. A question like this, a sketch can count from 3 up until 4 marks. See there? So they don't show the mark allocation here, but what are they looking for? If I was the examiner here, I would go mark. You have that correct, that is indicated. You have that correct, and that is correct. So the 3 intercepts is already 3 marks. Then your general, it's not going like, I don't even want to show the wrong one. It's not going like this. No? It's going nice, curvy, not pointy. And I move on. The questions that I actually want to get to is now use your graph to answer the following questions. Give the range of f. Range? Since grade 10 or grade 11, we've been learned that. How do we determine our range if we have? What is the range actually? The smallest y value until the biggest y value. So you take your ruler, no, or anything that you can grab. You go from, you ask what is the smallest y value? The smallest y value is -4. Biggest y value? Positive infinity. So as a, then next question, let's quickly write that down, square bracket. So if you're going to write it, I think they're going to show it on the memo now. Y is an element of, it starts with -4 until infinity. They're going to, memos likes including the other way, so you will see it now. You can also write it that way. No? Y is greater or equals to -4. 1.5.2, for which values of x will f of x be greater than 0? Isn't it less than? Oh, okay, yeah, greater. So it's most technically it's this values here. So it's an inequality question, and they're actually asking us this values. So what is the values of x? It starts here from -infinity and it goes until -3. Then it starts again by positive infinity until 3. So there's your answer there. It's from 1 until positive infinity. So the other way of writing that one down can be x is an element from -infinity. Now, careful here. Round bracket or square bracket? Round bracket. Why? It's not equal. They ask you. No? So then you write it like this. If there was an equal sign, then it would have been a square bracket here. Remember the square bracket says included, and then it goes from 1 until infinity. Any questions at this stage, grade 12? Anati, you good? No questions? Moving too slow, too fast? Is it fine? Okay, so I can pick up the pace. Alright. Now we're saying, alright, that question, f of x, that is the derivative. Now what I actually want to know is whether this derivative, and this is a part of calculus, They're working a little bit ahead here. So if I was to derive the equation, what is the equation again? It goes like this. So they're actually asking for, where is this going to be turning point there? Right. We're not gonna, we'll get to calculus when we get there. No, just make a note for yourself there. That sign there doesn't mean inverse, it means the derivative of function f of x. And they're asking us, where is the derivative greater than 0? But if I was to explain that, if I can recall correctly, the derivative will cut through if I have a function, no? And then the derivative, say for example, the function is, it turns here by, what is this? 1. So by that x value, there, so the derivative function will, this will be, if this is f, this is the derivative of f, and where this one has a turning point, then that one will be greater than f. So the answer there is supposed to be -1 here. It's the turning point's value. This comes into play when we're going to do later in the year, we're going to do cubic functions. This is a cubic function, right? And then the derivative of a cubic function is going to be a quadratic function, and then the derivative of a quadratic function is going to be a linear function. So we're going to do a lot of derivation still, but that's going to be in calculus, so we're going to skip that question. You can write down the answer though. Now they ask you to determine the equation of h, where h is the graph of f moved 1 unit to the right. To the right, so that's going to be, what are we adding there? We add 1. Determine the h. I don't think that one is right. Yes, it is. Alright, so it's currently we have x minus x plus 1 squared plus 4. When we're traveling left or right, we're traveling in x. Alright, where are we traveling in x now? To the right. So if I'm traveling to the right, to my x, I should actually be moving way -1. So therefore the answer there becomes, that becomes 0, x squared plus 4. No? Just put that in for yourself. If you don't understand, make a note there, Carlington, that when we're traveling in x, we're traveling in the opposite direction. That's why we put in, even though they say we're moving to the right, which is actually -1. Good. Write down the turning point for G if G is the reflection of f in the x-axis. Reflection in the x-axis, our rule there. Before you write down the answer to this question, what is the rule again? Alright, so if I say my rule always looks like this for reflections, xy is going to change to x -y. Now I go and use, what is the turning point? So I first need to figure out what is the rule. And if I know the rule in my x-axis, my y is going to change. So then I just apply my rule. So now I say I'm given what? I'm given -1 and 4. Is it -4 as well? No? So it changes now. My new coordinate is going to be -1 and 4. Positive 4. Amy, you good with that one? Just applying the rule there. Good. We're going on example number 2. Equation in standard form. There we're given y is equals to -2x squared plus 8x plus 10. Then they ask you to determine the coordinates of the turning point of f. How do we determine the turning point again? Who can recall? X of the turning point equals to -b over 2a. Let's do the substitution, see what do you get. And if I'm done with this, what do I do? Is that the turning point? No, I need to substitute this coordinate into the equation. So that's now going to be, so to determine the y of the turning point, I have this answer and I substitute into the given equation. So that's going to be, anyone? X is equals to 2. No? If I substitute to, you can do this on your calculator, -2, 2 squared plus 8 times 2 plus 10. Final answer, 18. So then I write down for myself, turning point is there equals to 2 and 18. Write down the coordinates of the y-intercept. That's not supposed to be difficult. Y-intercept is where x is always going to be 0 and my y is going to be, is it first the x-intercept? Oh, sorry. Determine the x-intercepts of f. Okay. That's 18. 0. Let's see if we can factorize. What does this equation look like? We can divide it by 2. No? If we divide it by 2, we're going to get x by -2. Then we're going to get x -4 and 5. So the factors are going to be 1 and 5. -1, +5. Is that right? +5, -1. Now we draw the graph of f clearly. We can see the graph has a negative value. No? So all of the answers is there already on the board. We're just going to make a neat sketch graph. What do we know about the graph? It's going to be frowning. Alright, so I'm just making a quick idea. What else do I know? The turning point. So that is going to be 2 and 18. I normally do this small first for myself, so you can just get a rough idea in my mind. And then what else? It's gonna cut by -1 and +5. Alright, and then it's most probably going to go there. That value is going to be 10. No? What line? This is most the x-axis and this is the y-axis. So that is most. I just do it clearer, bigger, more constructed, more curvy, nice and neat, make a neat sketch. No, it doesn't need to be to scale. That's debatable. Sometimes it doesn't always look better. For time's sake, you don't have to draw it to scale, but your intercepts and all of your coordinates needs to make sense. Like you can't have the turning point being, say for example, the turning point is, let's say, 1 and -4. But then you say it cuts here by -5. Do you see? Doesn't make sense. Okay. Where are we now? 2.5.1. Now give the range of f of x, but there's now a translation in f of x. They say f of x shifted. Just write there for yourself because so that you understand what does that mean, f of x minus 3. So write it down, circle or highlight it for yourself and write dat dit getranslateer met 3 eenhede af. Skuif 3 eenhede af, move 3 units down. So you need to think now, what is the range going to be? Work from your original function first. What is your original function? It was 10. No, it was 18. No? So your original was 18. So now we're going to move 3 down. So 18 minus 3, 15. So your range is now going to be from -infinity until 15. Or you could have also write y needs to be not greater or equals to, but less or equals to. Now, by less because it goes down. This has a maximum turning point. Your function is supposed to look something like that. No? And then the range can be written y needs to be less or equals to 8, 15. 15. Then 2.5.2, for which values of x will this be less or equals to? So when you have a nice small sketch graph for yourself, you can go color it in there. They're asking technically for this values here. And there you can see it's from -infinity until -1 and from 5 until +infinity. This one now, if you write it in terms of x and if you use the bracket, this one will get square brackets, -1 and 5. Yeah. So this one, just because I know a lot of you prefer this method, or so that's going to be -infinity until -1, union sign, square bracket, 5 until infinity for x's. Thank you. Okay. Now they ask you, write down, where are we now? Alright, we're not going to do once again that derivative one. So we're by 2.5.3. Determine the equation of the x-axis, the equation of the axis of symmetry of f of x minus 1. So once again, we are just highlight that, describe that translation in words. If it was f of x minus 1, then we would have moved down. But what is this now? It is we're traveling in x, no? And we're saying -1. So we're moving in the opposite direction. So we're going to say 1 to the right. So add it for yourself there, please, in words so that you understand the question. Now we go back, determine the equation of the x-axis or the axis of symmetry. What is the current axis of symmetry? 2. If I move 1 unit to the right, x is going to be equals to 3. You need to write x is equals to 3. Let me just check on that one. Yeah, x is equals to 3. Could have also do it like that, but it's important understanding. X is equals to 3. Now, does the graph of negative f of x have a minimum or a maximum value? Give this value. Where is the negative actually? In the y. So what happens? The whole thing shifts. So this is actually just right there for yourself. Highlight once again negative f of x. Negative f of x. And then right there, what they actually saying to you in words is a reflection in the x-axis. Y becomes negative, so it's a reflection in the x-axis. So that means all of your values change from negative. Y values change from negative to positive and from in the other way around. Alright? So in the original graph we had a maximum turning point. But in this one we will have a minimum turning point. So your minimum turning point is going to be negative 18. Too fast. Writing down. Too slow. Mister. Page number 15. 15. There are. Look carefully. Question number. Now they ask you to determine the equation of the parabola. Are you there? Page number 6. Right. It's given that x-intercept. There's the root form or the intercept form. No? I call it the root form. The graph of f of x is equals to ax squared plus bx plus c and k of x is equals to 2x plus 10 is drawn below. Alright, so what is the values of p? I will get right there values of p. Who can tell me what is the values of p? I will fill it in on my sketch. The y-intercept of the straight line is 10. No? So you can write in there 10. Do you see it? Please and point to yourself, why am I writing that 10 in? Then they ask you write down the coordinates of p. So p would now be 0 and 10. So you write it as p bracket 0 and 10. The equation of the axis of symmetry. Now there's actually not only one way how we can determine the axis of symmetry. The negative b is actually just one of the few ways. The other way of how we can determine the axis of symmetry is if we have two values of the parabol that's on the same horizontal line. So for example, here we have negative 5 and 1. So what you do there is you add up the two values and divide it by 2. So negative 5 is going to be negative 2. Yes. So you can write down x, therefore x is equals to. Say that again. Did you hear what I just said? That was funny, no? Anati, you said it's that time of the day. Alright. Now they ask you to determine the numerical values of A, B, and C. So what you can do now is, what I would do is, I would do the following. I would say y is equals to A, no? And then I'm going to use the root form or the intercept form. Then we're going to say x minus, what is the 1 no root? 5. But now it's not going to be negative 5, it's going to be the opposite value. So that's going to be, technically we're writing, this is happening, it's negative 5. Then it becomes a positive. Alright, so just remember it's the opposite sign, and then it becomes positive 5, and then x, and then minus 1. But now we still have too many variables there. We have 1, 2, 3 variables still there. So now we're going to use another known coordinate. And what is that coordinate? P. No? So you can put in the p's value. So p's value is going to be where y is equals to 10 and x is equals to 0. So we're going to say a 0, that becomes plus 5, and 0 minus 1. So it's negative 5. So that becomes negative 5a is equals to 10. How would I solve for a? Divide by negative 5 on both sides. And so my answer is probably going to be negative 2a. Sorry, a is equals to negative 2. Did they only ask for a? No, they also ask for b. And alright, but we actually already have the value of c. To determine now for c or for b, we can now go once again and substitute that into the equation and then work out. So we just substitute the value of a, put it into the standard equation, and then we expand. Then we're going to get the value of b is negative 8. We expand there. And then in the same essence, we also determine the value of c, which is 10. So a lot of this stuff is going to be over and over functions. They say we're doing functions, but we're doing algebra. But we got b. Y is equals to a. You know most a? A is what? Negative 2, ne? Then we have x squared plus, sorry, not x squared, then we use this root x minus 5. We're going to use this one again, x plus 5, no? And then x minus 1. Now if we go expand this, you're going to get, first, don't multiply in the 2. Quickly leave the 2 outside. So you only expand this one. So that's going to be x squared. And then x times with negative 1 is negative x. And then 5 times is going to be positive 5x. No? And minus 5 times negative 5 is equals to minus 5. Are you with me? Then, like terms there, x squared minus 4x minus 5. But now, there was a 2 outside the whole time. Now, just expand to distribute the 2 over all of that terms. So that becomes 2x squared minus 8x minus 10. Cool. Next one. Any questions at this stage? Thank you, Dan. The answer is a plus there and a plus there. Plus here, and that's negative here. And then it's a negative, and then it becomes a positive. Alright, where are we now? For which values of x is f of x less or equals to 0? So now you can just go on your graph there. Where is it going to be? See if you can color it in quickly. It's going to be this part here. And then you just write it down. If we were to write it down in the other form, it would have been x is an element of negative infinity until negative 5. Now is it a round bracket or square bracket? Square bracket. Why? Included. No? Included because there's the equal sign there. Alright, once again after that we don't have the derivative. We're not going to do the derivative for right now. So give the range of f. Range, I go from bottom to top. So the range is, I need to know what is the turning point of this. No? Have we worked out the turning point? No. So now we can now determine the turning point. And the turning point here is 18. So there's the answer for the range. Now they ask us, determine the values of k for which k will have no real roots. So what does that mean? That means where will we have this function? No. But where will this not have any roots? If this value is negative 18, if the y value there is negative 18, then that means I need to shift up with how many values? With 18. So we technically need to add 18 or more. If I add only 18, what is going to happen? Then it's still going to have one root, or we say 2 equal roots. Alright, so any value greater than 18 is going to give me no real roots. The speakers, daar's my speakers. Is it ready for come off? You want to quickly stand up, stretch a little bit. Like, can do a Marvel? You guys, no, I'm still working on the right. Nikolai, you didn't on the edge of greatness. Yes, so it's like 6. Last question there, we had the range is 18. Now we're on the next page, number 4, turning point given. Right. So the graph is information, you can read for yourself. I'm not going to read the information, I'm just going to analyze quickly. Write down the range of f of x plus 8. So technically, look at the 4.1. Write down the coordinates of q, s, and q are reflections, axis of symmetry. Okay. So quickly, what you can do for me on your page there, put in a line, a dotted line like that with your ruler that goes through, put in the axis of symmetry. Yeah. Then make a cross that goes through that, through Q and S, like also a dotted line going through Q and S. Now ask yourself, in terms of X, how did I get from R to S?
Shift
Number units?
1 to the right.
1 to the right, right? So if that is the reflection from R to Q, what am I going to do?
1 to the left.
1, but to the opposite side. So it's 1 to the
Q
left.
is 0.
So Q is 0,
0.
and Y is
0. Negative 6.
negative 6. So the answer to
4.1
is
0 and negative
0 and 6. If you don't understand, raise your hand, I can come to you, explain it to you. It's almost like a reflection. It's almost like a reflection where y-axis, like a reflection in the y-axis. 4.2. Write down the range of f of x. What is f of x? Good function. Huh? What happens now to that function? So quickly write here for yourself if you didn't know that. Fx plus 8. Highlight that. Write for yourself. What does that mean now? So now
They want the range. So
they want the range, sorry.
pi is an element of
What?
0.
No, so I determine the new numerical values of A, B, and C. So what you can do there, you can substitute into A, B, and you can substitute two coordinates. I would first go and substitute into the first equation there. I would substitute into this equation. Y is equals to A x plus B squared plus Q. I can substitute into here what? Alright, so there's going to be negative x, that remains A, minus 1 squared minus 8. Where am I getting this A there? I'm substituting from R, so that's going to be negative 1, and I have still, how many variables do I still have here? 1, 2, 3, 2, and negative 6. If I substitute that into the negative 6, is equal to squared 1, so that is A. It's 8 minus 6 minus over, so then negative 6 plus 8. So that means it's 2. Now we can substitute this equals to 2x minus 1 squared minus 8. And then I just expand this. And I will probably get the standard equation. Let's first do the brackets first. So what is this? This is equal to
2x plus 1.
plus 1. And then remember your brackets as well. Y is equals to, now I expand it 2, so that becomes 2x squared minus 4x
Minus 7
plus 2 plus 2 no, minus 8. So your final answer here is going to be 6 minus 6. So what is the value? 4.5. Distance of VP would be from, let's see what you get here. Thank you, I forgot that. Here, always go back and we'll do this on Friday as well. If they ask, if you have done all your calculations, go back, read the question, if you answered, because what was the question here? We did all the work, but we didn't say A is equals to 2, B is equals to negative 4, and C is equals to negative 6. So be very particular when you're answering questions and make sure that you answer the question and not what you. Right, as you can see there, the answers are on the board. The length of VP, those of you still calculating, just check if you're calculating correct. Correct. X is equals to 3, Y is equals to negative 1. No? And then the length between that is going to be 4 units in Afrikaans in either. If the measurement is not given, you always say units, please. Less equals to 0. That is between now. X is an element of negative 1. And then there's another derivative question. You can actually answer the question because you know that this is going to be at the turning point. So your x value, you just check the x value of the turning point is going to be what? 1. So they ask you where is this 1 going to be. Now they say, write an equation of the axis of symmetry. Axis of symmetry that we have there, x plus 3. What happens there?
3 to the left.
In words,
Shifted 3 units to the left.
question by question. I just want you see questions like this. This is not difficult questions, but because we don't want to understand what the symbols mean, and then sometimes we struggle with these type of questions. But this is normally marks that learners are throwing away unnecessarily. You need to go and score as much as possible. Okay, determine the point for f of negative x. What do you think is that? The m is negative x. Earlier we had negative. Earlier we had negative. Now, what is the difference between this? This was a reflection in the x-axis, so this is going to be a reflection in the y-axis. Just write down to yourself that this is a reflection in the as. So what's the real? Okay, tell me what is the rule? And you don't have to know the rules by heart, but if you can just work from a, this is the x-axis. If I have a coordinate here and it's reflecting there, I like having an image there for myself. What changed? So the rule here is going to be x, y,
Negative x.
all about the rules and applying the rules. Now they ask you determine the values for k for which f of x is equals to k will have two unequal positive real roots.
So is our test going to be anything like this? Is our test going to be anything like this?
No.
Much more difficult.
Right. This answer is just, it needs to be a real value, so it can't be anything greater where, what is the maximum or the minimum turning point there is negative 8. So we move more than negative 8, what happens? It's going to be non-negative, right? That is the one restriction, and then needs to also not move too that's where we get the answer ends. Right. What I'm going to do, the hyperbole, page number 8 and 9, I am the.
I recall getting notes on it, and then we did like one or two, but we never really did much on it.
Right. So let me just go through the hyperbole then. Yeah. The hyperbole has the basic function of y is equals to a over
S plus P
plus b
plus Q.
plus q. Yeah. We have. So if there's no this a value is negative, then like that, like the rules remain the same. Almost like the parable. If we travel in x, if we say here x plus 3 or x minus 3, what is it going to be? It's actually going to be here.
Yes, so
That is going to be x is equals to
3.
if this is x is equals or 1, this is the q value here is, for example, let's say 5. Right? So if you can understand that and grasp that, you basically have everything that you need of the hyperbole. You just need to remember the a, the b, and the q. If a is positive, then it's going to be where
Second and third, second
a
and
is
fourth
positive,
quadrant.
it's going to be
Second and
first
fourth.
and third. No, this is for a positive. For negative, it's going to be second and fourth. And then just remember then it shifts up and down. Why the emphasis on the exponential graph? Yeah, is because the exponential graph is now this one. If we say, for example, if we do an inverse of this, some are going to keep. But if you do it, that's why. So just looking at what they say there, page number 10, sketching the exponential graph, y is equals to a times b to the power of x plus p plus q. Now the q is what? The p is nothing having in the x opposite direction. It's always applicable, always. Write down the equation of the asymptote of f. What will that be? Y is equals to negative 4. So I know it sometimes becomes routine, but it's going to be a lot of repetition over and over. And if you can do it right the first time, you will see. But this thing is only problems is not so different from what we all know. So we get there 0 is equals to 2 to the power of negative x minus 4. We take the negative 4 to the other side. No? And then we get 2 to the power of 2, and then we equate the two exponents, then we get x is equals to negative 2. At 7.2.2, they ask you the coordinates of the y-intercept. You substitute there into the place of x 0, so that's going to be 2 to the power of negative 0 now. But negative doesn't two sides, it's a neutral guy, so just 2 to the power of 0. And 2 to the power of 0 is 1, so it's 1 minus 4 equals 2. 7.3, draw the graph clearly showing all the asymptotes and intercepts. Alright, so we know now that this graph, a value, no, because it's a negative x there, it's technically going to go like this, because of x is equals to 2 to the power of negative. So what is important? When you start, you know that this is the general way it's going. Why is it not going upwards? Because it's a decreasing. Yeah? So it's going down. Then, what else do I know? It has an asymptote. And right now my asymptote is negative 2, and y-intercept is negative 3. And now this thing, so what the nice thing is sometimes to do is you first draw it, sometimes you graph it nicer, because sometimes you are too fixated on the only answer, and now all of a sudden your 2 is here, or you're not going to graph it at 3. So there's your graph. It's just see, have I indicated everything that's important? My axis is x, y, and this is 0. There's negative 2, there's negative 3. This I the stuff that you want to use. Right there. 7.4 is your graph. Use the answer. I go. I go. Will this thing ever be less than negative 4? No. So my answer is going to be y can be 2. 7.4.2. For which values of x will this function will be? So they are actually asking you what is this part here until negative 2, and that 2 is included. That's negative infinity. And the next question they ask you, where will it be? Less than. Now it's going to be x is an element. Once again, I'm not looking at the memo. I'm looking at my sketch. This is where I'm getting the answers from. Now determine the equation of h of x move 2 units to the right and 1 unit up. So 2 units, what is happening?
X minus.
So basically, if this is the function f of x now, I'm just going to type it like that. You write it like that. It's equals to what happens?
So it's x
2 units to the right. Oh, so it's x
plus minus 2.
minus 2 and plus 1. Alright, so the x is traveling. What is the x currently? So
So
2 negative, right? So that's going and then
plus
negative 1
minus 2. Minus 2 is already a minus 4.
negative units to the right side. Negative 2 then
7.4.2. What? 7.5.